An entitled old couple try to break into my house and look around after they see the for sale sign sitting on our front lawn. But even though I told them that I will call the police if they ever try that again, they claim that because I had a for sale sign on my yard, they had every right to go into our house and look around whenever they want. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened in early 2020, right before the pandemic shut everything down. I was still in high school at the time, walking back home from the bus stop one afternoon after school. I live with my grandparents and they had decided to downsize and put their old house up for sale. So there was one of those for sale signs in the yard with a name and number for the realtor. I decide to walk up to the house and then I see this elderly couple there. The man was trying to open the front door while the woman was attempting to look through this bay window that we had overlooking the driveway. She was on her tiptoes trying to peek through the gap at the top of the window shade. So naturally, I went and asked them what they were doing. They said they were just looking at the house because it was for sale. Because apparently, I guess a home being for sale somehow entitles them to try and break in even while there are still people living there. They asked me if I lived there and started asking me all sorts of questions that I couldn't or even just didn't want to answer, such as the exact square footage of the house, as well as where my bedroom was, before asking how to get into the backyard. And they seemed awfully confused when I asked them to leave. It was like they thought they had a right to be there, as if I had not just watched them try to break in. Later that week, they came back, but this time I was already home. My bedroom window overlooked the street in front of the house, and I was on my bed doing something, and I looked up to see the same old couple staring at me through my window. They then smiled at me when I looked up, almost like they were waiting for it or something like that. I had no idea how long it had been there, but it was really creepy. I again asked them what they were doing, and I asked them to leave again, but they instead declared that they were just looking at the house, that the house was for sale, and that they wanted to look around. And if we didn't want people looking at the house, then we shouldn't have put up the for sale sign out front. Well, I then said I'm going to call the police if they don't leave. A few days later, my grandparents caught them trying to get into the backyard. The wife had found the latch on the other side and was reaching over the fence undoing it so that she could walk right into the backyard. It usually had a padlock, but it wasn't at that moment because my grandparents were out there, so naturally they just got caught straight away. They once again used the same excuse of the house being for sale, so my grandparents told them that they should have contacted their realtor if they really were interested in seeing the house. They then began to play dumb and said that they didn't know who the realtor was when her name and phone number were on the for sale sign that they literally kept going on and on about. They also could have, I don't know, maybe knocked on the door instead of trying to let themselves in the front door or into the backyard. My grandparents told them that if they ever saw them again, they would call the police, and that my grandparents and the realtor would make sure that they never are allowed to see the inside of the house. Well, after that, we never saw them again. I guess they took my grandparents seriously when they said they're gonna call the cops. But honestly, what was their deal? I've never been in the market for a house, but last I heard, a house being for sale doesn't give you the right to just let yourself inside at any time, especially when the owner still lives there. My grandparents love critiquing houses that are for sale and regularly go to the open houses in our area, even though they're never planning on buying another home. I wonder if that couple was maybe the same, but just convinced themselves that they were entitled to let themselves into any building that was up for sale, regardless of whoever might be living there. But I'm really glad we never saw them again, because that experience was incredibly creepy. Yeah, that is not the way you go about trying to inspect a house you want to buy. The people in this story literally were still living there. Even just looking at the house and the clear activity all around them, they should be able to obviously come to the conclusion that yes, somebody lives there and that I need permission to go into the house. You can't just walk up and be like, oh yeah, your house is for sale. That means we can go in whenever we want, because that's an insane assumption and it's definitely not the way the things actually work. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my fiance's mom that she's clueless and needs to mind her own business when it comes to my family? Because the way she's talking right now has really upset me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old male, and I'm engaged to a woman who we will call Sierra, and we're having trouble with her mom, who we will call May. I get along fine with Sierra's family for the most part, even May typically, but she has always been a little intrusive into my family life and wanting to know details that are really none of her business. I don't have a close family or a family at all, really. My mom was a train wreck of a person who destroyed her life when she was previously married by cheating and getting involved with some shady guys, which ended her marriage and caused tension with her 2 kids from her ex-husband. She ended up getting pregnant with me, and there were 3 guys who could have been the father, and none were happy with the situation that she made. When my father was confirmed, she chose another guy instead, and my father completely left the picture. My mom ended up losing custody of me when I was 3 or 4 because she wasn't taking care of me, she was letting her boyfriend mistreat me, and they were involved in criminal activities that she had a long history of by that point. Her other children's father was given sole custody of them, and he was asked by a social worker to take me as well. He initially said no, but then someone who I'm not sure who it was told him that his kids would hate me forever if he left me to the system. So he took me in and let me live with them until I turned 18 years old. But his kids didn't want me, and he made sure of it. So while I had a family in the sense that I grew up with other people in the same house, nobody actually wanted me there, and it was made very clear to me by my mother's own children that I wasn't their sibling, and they didn't hate their dad for not taking me because they just didn't want me. My father wasn't hostile to me exactly, but he was cold, and he made it very clear that I was not his kid. By the time I turned 17 years old, I was on my own because he realized his kids had never loved me, and I was dropped with the knowledge that nobody would come for him for leaving me at 17 when I was already working. I have nothing to do with them or my mother or my father, or even the extended family. When it comes to Sierra, she's from a very complicated blended family. May appears to have a very defensive view of blended families, and being somewhat aware of my past, she has pressured me to reach out and invite my supposed family to my wedding, and to her, my family means the man who raised me and his kids. Sierra has told her that won't be happening, and we actually stopped seeing her for a period of time, all because of her insistence on bringing it up all the time. May finally decided to tell me that I owe her the whole story, and that she'll be able to help me make amends with my family because that's what's best for everybody. I told her she was so clueless if she thought things would work out that way, and I told her that she needs to mind her own business because I don't owe her my whole background. Sierra then kicked May out, but not before May told me that I had spoken to her harshly when all she said she was doing was trying to help. So am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk, because it not only sounds like this is a very sensitive and private issue, but also this is most definitely not May's business. She literally has no business getting involved in this. For starters, she is not entitled to your information about your life, but also, even if she did understand where you're coming from, she has no right to try and carry the burden of making amends with your family, because what you described sounds awful. You literally had nobody growing up, and they literally just dropped you off on the curb when you're 18, 17 years old? That's an awful situation, and it probably still hurts even to this day. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for telling May to get lost. Her entitled attitude is completely unnecessary, and these kinds of intrusive questions are completely unacceptable. Did I overreact for quitting a job after I found out that my coworker makes more than me simply because she has kids? Because right now, as I look back on it, I worry that I might have made the wrong decision. Here's what happened. So this happened a few years ago in 2018, and I had just graduated high school. I was working part-time at a music store making $10 an hour. I had already been there for about a year, and they hired this new woman who I basically had to show how to do everything in the store, from scanning in music and instruments and accessories, all the way to showing her how the register worked. One day, I saw the new girl had left her pay stub on the counter, so I decided to take a look, and it was then that I saw she was getting paid $11.50 an hour, which is a whole $1.50 more than me. I decided to bring it up to my manager, and I asked him why she was being paid more when I had been there for over a year, and I spoke 2 languages, which by the way has brought in a lot more business. He told me that this is the way that it was because she has 2 kids, so she needs the money. And when he said that, I lost it. I was only 18 years old, but I knew I did not deserve to be treated like this, so I gave him my 2 weeks notice right then and there. Obviously, this was 6 years ago, but I still think about it from time to time, and I've had people side with me saying that it was wrong of them to do that to me, and I've also had people saying that she should have been paid more than me, all because of her kids, and I was only a teenager right out of high school. So did I overreact in this kind of scenario? Because right now, I don't know if I made the right choice. I'm right there with you. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that she was getting paid more than you, especially since you were clearly a high-value employee. You had brought in a lot more business because you spoke 2 languages, and you had worked there for a year. It's not like you were new and you didn't know what you were doing. You had a firm understanding of how that place worked, so much so that you were the one who taught this lady how to do the job in the first place, and then you're gonna find out that she gets paid more than you? It's like, no, that's not gonna happen. If I was in your shoes, I'd be upset as well. Just because someone has a family and kids should not determine if you get paid more than coworkers who have been at this job longer than you. Why withhold earnings things from somebody who's so experienced, only to then hand that over to someone all because they have kids and a family. I find that completely unfair, and that is absolutely ridiculous to have that kind of standard at your business. And I mean that across the board. In my opinion, experience as well as your expertise should absolutely determine your hourly wage, and not some arbitrary factor about how many kids you have. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Leave a comment down below. Do you think the original poster was justified for quitting after finding out they're making less than a new coworker? Or does this new coworker deserve to make more money all because they have kids? Let us know down below. We would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for not staying out of my family's business and for ruining my dad's marriage all because of the things they were saying about my mom? Because right now, a lot of people are mad at me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 15-year-old female, and I'm in a weird situation, and I really would like some outside perspective because I'm kind of at a loss. I am my parents' only child, and I have a stepmom who we will call Eve. From what I was told, my dad and my stepmom were a couple first, but things didn't work out shortly after they had my siblings. And my dad eventually met and married my mom after she discovered that she was pregnant with me. My dad didn't marry Eve, and from what my aunts told me, she was really bitter about it and used my siblings as a weapon to punish my dad and mom. My mom tried her best, but after she found out that my dad and Eve were sleeping together, she just filed for divorce. During the marriage, my dad had an established business that grew, and because my mom was able to prove that she had done unpaid labor for my dad's business, my mom had some leverage within the divorce and agreed to relinquish a stake in the company for alimony, the house, and a car for herself while getting child support for me. For the next couple of years, my mom focused on me and going back to school, and that's because my dad convinced her to stop while she was taking a break from her studies to save up more money. She eventually graduated and tried looking for work, but nothing really interested her. My dad and stepmom, who had gotten married by then, were always angry with my mom for not getting a job so that they would pay less alimony, and they also tried to get 50-50 custody of me just so they could try and reduce child support payments, but I never liked living with my dad full-time because I was often made to babysit their younger children. Also, my older siblings never warmed up to me, and I simply didn't like the way that Eve and her family would talk about my mom. Eventually, my mom got certified for a job that she wanted and has been an independent contractor for years. Because of this, my mom submitted the paperwork to stop alimony payments, and since then, she's been living life. Last week, when I was with my mom, Eve, my sister, who we will call Zoe, and Eve's sister were in the living room saying very rude things about my mom. They called her a side piece, a gold digger, and said that my older sister had to take out loans because of the increase in alimony that my mom was awarded. I walked in and called Eve and Zoe liars, that my mom was never the side piece, and that my mom has been working for years, so there was no alimony. Now, when I did this, there was a big confrontation, and I ended up leaving, but I later sent Eve, Zoe, and one of Eve's sisters a link to my mom's professional social media page that listed the companies that she worked for. It turns out my dad never told his family that the alimony payment stopped, and instead of putting the extra money towards them, he's been keeping it for spending it elsewhere. It is crazy over there, and my dad and a few of his family members are saying that I'm wrong for meddling in grown folks' business. I just hated how they were talking and spreading lies about my mom, but maybe I went about it the wrong way. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it sounds like your dad was literally throwing your mom under the bus just so he could keep money from your stepfamily. Like, he literally just sat there and let them say all these horrible things, and then they're gonna tell you to mind their own business? Like, no, I'm sorry, that's not gonna happen. If someone was talking about my mom like that, I absolutely would have spoken up too. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Their attitude and the way they were going about doing this was completely inappropriate, and I don't blame you for speaking up in the slightest. Am I the jerk for asking my niece to babysit my autistic son for free after I had to rush my cat to the hospital? Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm a single dad to an 11-year-old son who is autistic. The way his autism presents is mainly through his personality. He's very smart, quiet, and prefers to get lost in the land of fire alarms and elevators. And he's genuinely a really good kid. I have quite a few friends who don't like being around kids, but they still adore him. I also have a 19-year-old niece who's staying with me for a few days to go to a concert. A couple days ago, my cat got sick with symptoms I have never seen before. Given that vets here are always booked a few weeks out, I had to take him to the emergency vet, and I told my niece to just stick around and watch my son while I run the cat down there. Well, she said that she's child-free, so she doesn't babysit. I told her it would just be a few hours, and that she knows my son well enough that he would, at the most, just ask for something to be warmed up for him. She then said to me, "Pay me and it's a deal." I told her that we could hash something out later because I had to get going. She then said, "Fine, you can go, but we will talk later." I then get back from the vet with a diagnosis, basically stating that my cat was allergic to my niece's perfumes, which she wears because it helps her feel closer to her bias. Well, my niece was pissed because she couldn't wear her perfume anymore, so she demanded $100 from me. But I told her no because for starters, I wasn't making her throw it away, and secondly, she's staying here for free, and I'm already paying for her food and her transportation. It was also only 3 hours, which she would have spent on her phone anyways, and she even admitted that he just stayed in his room the whole time. She then accused me of guilt tripping her, and she got my brother to buy her a hotel room because apparently I gaslit and manipulated her. My brother, of course, went off on me about how I ruined her trip, and he demanded that I compensate him for the hotel because he had to put everything on his credit card. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. You did nothing wrong in my opinion, and honestly, this whole scenario and how it turned out is essentially proof that your niece is spoiled rotten. Like, just look at the way your brother reacted. Instead of asking you about what happened, he instantly just got her a hotel room and said, "I can't believe you would ruin her trip." For starters, you didn't ruin anything, and secondly, this niece is completely lying. Like, seriously, you were allowing her to go into your home and be there so that she can go to a concert later on, and then she has the audacity to be like, "Wow, I'm upset, you need to give me $100. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? That is not happening. I think at most I would give her like, what, $20 for sitting there for 3 hours and doing nothing, and I'm sure the 11-year-old probably could have been fine by himself, no problem, but it's honestly so ridiculous that this 19-year-old niece couldn't be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna watch him for like 3 hours and that's totally fine." But instead, she wants to act all entitled and be like, "Wow, you're making this so inconvenient for me," which in my opinion, that kind of reaction to this situation is just so uncalled for. So no, of course you're not the jerk, but also I would never let that niece stay over at my house ever again if I was in your shoes, because clearly she's just gonna take advantage of your kindness and she is never gonna return the favor ever. And that, in my opinion, especially when you asked her to do something so minor, is completely inappropriate and so uncalled for. I found out that my best friend is cheating on his wife, and now he is begging me not to say anything. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my best friend and I have been inseparable since we were 5 years old. We went to school together, did most of life's major milestones together, and I consider him my brother in all but blood. When his grandmother passed away while we were in high school, she even had me in her will, leaving me with a small trust to use for college. For as long as I can remember, his family has been mine and vice versa. We both got married in 2017, and our wives are very close and have been since we started dating. While I'm not as close with her as with my wife, I see his wife like my sister and I care about her the same way. 3 days ago, I was riding in my best friend's car when he asked me to put on some music. So I picked up his phone and I put in his code because we've known each other's passcodes for years. And while I was navigating Spotify, a text message came through from a contact named Pizza Place that said, "Are you coming over tonight?" I sat there stunned for a few seconds before turning over and asking who in the world Pizza Place was. Well, when I said that, he immediately started yelling at me for going through his messages before I told him exactly what happened. He pulled over into a parking lot and spent a few minutes yelling at each other until he finally came clean. Apparently, he's been hooking up with a coworker for about a month. He says that he still loves his wife and has no intentions of ever leaving her. He begged me not to tell his wife and that he's going to find a way to break it off with his other woman, but says that he's in too deep to just ghost her and doesn't know how to cut it off just yet. He says that he swears it will never happen again and that his mistake doesn't warrant his life and his marriage being ruined. After some back and forth, I reluctantly agreed to stay quiet, but later that day, I remembered something that might change my mind. He and his wife started the process of IVF a few months ago, and I haven't pressed for details, but she has used my wife as a support through the process, and I know that it's been very taxing on her. Ultimately, my dilemma is this: is it right for me to keep this a secret, knowing that they are trying to bring a child into the world, and knowing that child could be born into a broken home if his wife finds out after she gets pregnant? I'm torn between the friend that I love like my brother and what I feel like would be the right thing to do. I know I'm not the one who was wronged here, but I feel so betrayed and angry. I feel like he's done something that's going to tear apart the small family the four of us have built together, as well as the bigger one that we planned on having one day. I know he's not a bad person, and up to this point, I'm pretty sure he's been a model husband. What should I do? Okay, maybe I'm heartless, but in my opinion, his wife absolutely deserves to know the truth. Like, this is seriously so messed up, because what you would be doing by keeping this quiet is basically being complicit in this whole scenario. Like, in my opinion, opinion, staying silent is just not an option. Here they are trying to have a kid together, and this poor lady has no idea that her husband is a cheating dirtbag. Just imagine how she would feel if she finally does get pregnant, and then she finds out, oh wait, my husband's been cheating on me with a coworker. That would be devastating, because now she's pregnant with a guy who cheated on her. So if I was in this situation, I absolutely would tell the wife. Like, this is gonna suck either way, because if you stay quiet, then the wife is gonna be like, wait, you knew about this? But also, it sounds like your best friend is gonna turn his back on you if you do confess that he's a cheater. But in my opinion, I feel like the wife has every right to know. She deserves to see this guy for exactly what he is. And I personally just don't believe him when he's like, yeah, I'm trying to break this off, I'm gonna figure that out soon. Like, he's not gonna do any of that. If anything, he's probably freaking out because now somebody else knows about it. So hopefully this all goes over well, because this really is gonna suck no matter how you approach it. Because what your friend did is absolutely unacceptable. And in my opinion, his wife absolutely deserves to know the truth. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.